Somalia's fight against Al-Shabab militants continues as activists say people inside the country are feeling both fear and outrage at the lack of accountability. Al-Shabab has claimed responsibility for several attacks in the last few months, including a raid of a hotel in the capital of Mogadishu that killed dozens and car bombings that killed more than 100 and injured 300 others. We'll speak with an activist on the ground about why the people are taking matters into their own hands. Joining me now to discuss the latest is Abdirahman Rassas, who is a Somali activist based in Somalia. Abdirahman, thank you so much for making the time. First of all, we're looking at the increase in frequency of these Al-Shabab attacks. What is happening?
Thank you, Hermela, for having me in your show. What's happening, it's actually, it's kind of like weird things because this Al-Shabab, it's kind of like a monster that is agitated every time that actually foreigners would like to intimidate or put in pressure whatsoever kind of government that might come in Somalia, who would like to actually rebuild the institution of the country. So every time that you have that kind of like a path forward, immediately you have that kind of a puppet that is agitated. So what we are seeing recently, the increase of the attacks of Al-Shabaab can be seen in that light, but also is the fact that actually since couple of months there is a popular resistance against these terrorists. They have been kicked out from the major region where they used to hide. So the attack in the capital in Mogadishu can be seen as a last act of revenge, or a way actually to put the pressure that they are getting actually in the region, in the other region where they used to hide.
So is there equal resistance from the people and the government of Somalia against Al-Shabaab, and that is why they're escalating their attacks? Or, you know, is there some nuance in that?
We can say that actually the pressure and the attacks against Al-Shabaab started during the previous government, where the government actually rebuilt the national army, a very, very strong and professional army. And we saw actually that army actually were fighting and winning against Al-Shabaab compared to the UN-sponsored and African Union-sponsored AMISOM that became later ATMIS, who were doing nothing beside hiding in their compound, a lofty compound in Halane, in Mogadishu. So, but now what we saw also, it's actually within the new government, a lot of people are not happy with the way this new government was selected. And when people saw actually that this government had a lot of tie with Al-Shabaab, by nominating, for example, the co-founder of Al-Shabaab as a minister, by giving the National Security and Intelligence Agency to a well-known Al-Shabaab member, a lot of people actually took the initiative to fight against Al-Shabaab. These people are called the Ma'awisle in the Somali language, but it's a popular uprising against these terrorists because they see that this government is doing nothing apart rewarding actually the worst notorious terrorists who have the blood of hundreds and hundreds of innocent people with key position in the government. So yes, the Somali National Army is still fighting. The people are joining them, but the biggest missing case here, it's the government of Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. Until now, he didn't bring the 5,000 well-trained army by the Eritrean government he didn't bring them in Somalia to fight against Al-Shabaab. Instead, the guy is busy actually traveling to country, to just traveling around the world, while actually he's just putting in key position in the government some very related family clan member who used to be member of Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, you had Al-Shabaab largely dormant or at least pushed off to the rural areas in the south for what seemed like years under President Farmajo. And then in May, when President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, who previously had been in charge of the country during the TPLF era in Ethiopia, when he comes in, the U.S. troops are sent at the same time. And then a few months later in August, we see the hotel attack. And then recently we see the car bombing. So, I mean, from the outside looking in, this is all certainly anecdotal and it's difficult to make the connections directly, but maybe you can, and it sounds like you are, that with this current president, there's an uptick, a serious uptick in Al-Shabaab attacks. So is there a reason that they are trying to include certain Al-Shabaab leaders or previous Al-Shabaab leaders into the fold? What value is there for President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed to do this?
To be honest, a lot of people here in Somalia were ready to give some kind of to trust Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, although like a lot of people were very careful because this guy he was actually president a couple of years ago, and it was a very disastrous period. It was a period actually that witnessed a lot of killings of MPs, the biggest number of journalists were assassinated. So a lot of people actually used to have some doubt about the relation between Hassan Sheikh and Al-Shabaab, knowing actually that key people who are leader of Al-Shabaab are a close relative of Hassan Sheikh. And when he came with the idea or the slogan of Somali heshiisa, dunida la heshiisa, meaning I will work on actually bringing peace between and within the Somali. So when he brought this guy, Mukhtar Robo, who was the co-founder of Al-Shabaab, who was arrested by the previous government, and he nominated him as a minister, a lot of people were shocked. And then immediately after that, he put Mahat Salad, a well-known, actually a very corrupt guy, but also a well-known actually Al-Shabaab member, or even if he's not a member, actually his cousin is actually leading the Al-Shabaab terrorists. His cousin is named Karate, and is leading this terrorist attack, and he has a close relationship, and he put him as the head of the National Intelligence Agency. People actually were kind of confused. Maybe Hassan Sheikh was trying actually to camouflage or try to hide some of the corruption case that was against him. But now, when you see all this resurgence, if we can say, in the attacks of this small group, this proxy mercenaries call themselves Al-Shabaab, increasing, while at the same time they are getting defeated on their own headquarters in different regions. They have been eliminated, they have been decimated, but they are increasing their attack in Mogadishu. We can somehow actually see kind of like a pattern of the old Hassan Sheikh, the corrupt Hassan Sheikh, with his old game, tricky games, actually trying to defer the attention, because while there is this emergency and attacks happening, he's not convening the parliament. There is no check and balance concerning the decision he's signing. For example, recently he signed a very, very controversial decision allocating the oil research, the maritime oil research, to a non-existent, like no one heard about this company, an American company, and this company actually it's giving like actually a disaster deal when it comes to the profit sharing when it comes to Somalia. So all these things happening at the same time. You have all this attack in Al-Shabab. So it's a kind of like a way Al-Shabab is used to make people busy, afraid, at the same time to continue to have this kind of like emergency situation, while a few corrupt in the government can continue their murky deals when it comes to the national resource of the country.
I imagine the fear is high. I mean, particularly in Mogadishu. The last attack that we saw on Sunday was on a military post. That's one thing. But the two attacks that we saw before that recently and then before that in August were in Mogadishu, the capital. In one case, a hotel, another two car bombings that were absolutely devastating, killed more than 100 people and injured more than 300. So what is the feeling in Mogadishu and other parts of Somalia that are vulnerable to these attacks?
The feeling is actually kind of like a mix of despair and at the same time a kind of like a growing rage within the population. If I let's take, for example, the attack on the hotel. The previous government built a very professional army, and within that army, there was a segment of that army that were specialized in terrorism activity. And they used to, every time that like Al-Shabaab tried to take a hotel or hostage, they used to actually go there, and less than an hour, they used to actually complete that operation. But within this government, they refused to use that professional army. They actually used kind of like another group that were not trained. Actually, it was trained by the American. It's called Danab, but they are not as well trained as the other ones. So it took actually more than 30 hours. And after that, when they kill people, when they destroyed the hotel, they escaped. It never happened actually during the last 5 years. The perpetrator escaped. So a lot of people started to question themselves and saying, hey, how come then these people they did this and then they accept, and all that because somehow an inept person was put in charge of the most important national agency, which is the intelligence agency, which is the guy that I was mentioning, Mahat Salad. Mahat Salad is a well-known, deeply corrupt, who has blood in his hand, but he's protected with the immunity because he's a member of the parliament. And his uncle, Hassan Sheikh, put him in charge of the highest institution of the country. So we have this kind of result.
So we don't have an arrest in the Mogadishu hotel attack. And I don't know what the car bombings look like. Were they suicide bombings, or did the people in that case get away with it as well?
No, it's actually somehow, sometimes it's a suicide bombers with actually a truck full of explosive. Sometimes actually it's a car or a truck full of truck, and then they just park it and then they explode it. But the problem is actually the last government, the last 5 years, Mogadishu became a normal city, and these things totally disappeared because there was a functioning government. So the question is, what happened with the selection of Hassan Sheikh? Where is the institution that were working there? That's the question that everyone today who lost someone, some relative, they are asking, and the rage is just increasing in Mogadishu.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, to your point, I do remember when President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed was put into position in May, and I was surprised to see that a lot of Somalis said, hold on, let's give it a chance. Things have been, getting better in this country, and maybe it's going to be fine. And it was unfortunate to see that a couple of months later, that these attacks began to pop up. But I do hope it gets better for the people there. Abdirahman Rassas, activist based in Somalia, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you, Armella.
Hi, everybody. This is Hermela Aragawi of EOAnews.com and on YouTube.com/HermelaTV. This video will walk you through how to become a patron of my Patreon account. It's a subscription model. NPR and other publicly funded news outlets use a model like this. It allows the company, the entity, to stay as independent as possible by being viewer funded. So I'll walk you through how to go to patreon.com/HermelaTV, sign up, and then become a monthly member. You'll first go to your browser on your phone or laptop and type in patreon.com/HermelaTV, patreon.com/HermelaTV. This is what the page will look like. You'll then click here where it says become a member. Then it will take you to a sign up page where you'll create a Patreon account that will require your name, your email address, and your new password for this account. So it will then either take you back to this page where you can click become a patron again, or it's possible it will take you to this landing page where on the left side you'll see the option for find creators. Click on that, and in the search box type Hermela TV. My account will show up, then it'll take you to this page. It will default to a monthly contribution of $5, but you can change that to whatever amount you would like. Here are two common issues that people run into. It may ask you for your state, country, and zip code. If it does that, just enter the information and continue on. You also have to go to the email of the email address you use for sign up and verify your account. So go to your email. You'll have gotten an email from Patreon. You have to click verify email address and then return to the browser where you are signing up. Then you will enter your credit card info and click on pay with card, and that's it. And please make sure you pass it around to your friends and family members that you know are interested in supporting independent journalism, particularly independent journalism that tells stories out of Africa from the perspective of the African people. I know a lot of us in Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Horn are celebrating the peace deal that was agreed to last week, but the disinformation in an effort to divide is not going to stop. In fact, we are seeing indications that it is ramping up. So we need to build these independent outlets. We need to scale up. Most of the production that you guys see on my YouTube channel is done by a production team of one, and we can't keep that going for much longer. So we need to hire some editors, some writers, and we need to hire good ones that are, if they don't already understand the general style of news out of Africa and what to look out for, they need to be trained, and we need to get at least part-time people in here, but also full-time to really be able to keep up with the daily news. And hope to see you on patreon.com/HermelaTV.